The Upanishads in two parts, part 2, translated by F. Max Muller. Brihadaranyaka Upanishad 6.1, first Brahmana. Hari Om. He who knows the first and the best becomes himself the first and the best among his people. Breath is indeed the first and the best. He who knows this becomes the first and the best among his people, and among whomsoever he wishes to be so. He who knows the richest becomes himself the richest among his people. Speech is the richest. He who knows this becomes the richest among his people, and among whomsoever he wishes to be so. He who knows the firm rest becomes himself firm on even and uneven ground. The eye indeed is the firm rest, for by means of the eye a man stands firm on even and uneven ground. He who knows this stands firm on even and uneven ground. He who knows success, whatever desire he desires, it succeeds to him. The ear indeed is success, for in the ear are all these that is successful. He who knows this, whatever desire he desires, it succeeds to him. He who knows the home becomes a home of his own people, a home of all men. The mind, indeed, is the home. He who knows this becomes a home of his own people, and a home for all men. He who knows generation becomes rich in offspring and cattle. Seed indeed is generation. He who knows this becomes rich in offspring and cattle. These pranas, senses, when quarreling together as to who was the best, went to Brahman and said, "Who is the richest of us?" He replied, "He by whose departure this body seems worst. He is the richest." The tongue, speech, departed, and having been absent for a year, it came back and said, "How have you been able to live without me?" They replied, "Like unto people, not speaking with the tongue, but breathing with breath, seeing with the eye, hearing with the ear, knowing with the mind, generating with seed. Thus we have lived." Then speech entered in. The eye, sight, departed, and having been absent for a year, it came back and said, "How have you been able to live without me?" They replied, "Like blind people, not seeing with the eye, but breathing with the breath, speaking with the tongue, hearing with the ear, knowing with the mind, generating with seed. Thus have we lived." Then the eye entered in. The ear, hearing, departed, and having been absent for a year, it came back and said, "How have you been able to live without me?" They replied, "Like deaf people, not hearing with the ear, but breathing with the breath, speaking with the tongue, seeing with the eye, knowing with the mind, generating with seed. Thus have we lived." Then the ear entered in. The mind departed, and having been absent for a year, it came back and said, "How have you been able to live without me?" They replied, "Like fools, not knowing with their mind, but breathing with the breath, seeing with the eye, hearing with the ear, generating with seed. Thus we have lived." Then the mind entered in. The seed departed, and having been absent for a year, it came back and said, "How have you been able to live without me?" They replied, "Like impotent people, not generating with seed, but breathing with the breath, seeing with the eye, hearing with the ear, knowing with the mind. Thus we have lived." Then the seed entered in. The vital breath, when on the point of departing, tore up these senses as a great excellent horse of the Sindhu country might tear up the pegs to which he is tethered. They said to him, "Sir, do not depart. We shall not be able to live without thee." He said, "Then make me an offering." They said, "Let it be so." Then the tongue said, "If I am the richest, then thou art the richest by it." The eye said, "If I am the firm rest, then thou art possessed of firm rest by it." The ear said, "If I am success, then thou art possessed of success by it." The mind said, "If I am the home, thou art the home by it." The seed said, "If I am generation, thou art possessed of generation by it." He said, "What shall be food? What shall be dress for me?" They replied, "Whatever there is, even unto dogs, worms, insects, and birds, that is thy food." and water thy dress, he who thus knows the food of Anna, the breath. By him nothing is eaten that is not proper food. Nothing is received that is not proper food. Srutrias, Vedic theologians, who know this, rinse the mouth with water when they are going to eat, and rinse the mouth with water after they have eaten, thinking that thereby they make the breath dressed with water. And the insects and the birds spoken of in verse 14 there, it may mean every kind of food such as eaten by dogs, worms, insects, and birds. And the Anna, the breath, we must read with manuscript I.O. 375, Annasyanam, not Annasyanam. Oh, so one N at the start. As in manuscript I.O. 1973, Rower and Poley read. Weber has the right reading, which is clearly suggested by the Khandogya Upanishad 5.2.1. This Brahmana is also called Kila, page 110, 58, page 1029, 58. Occurs in the Madhyandina, Saka 14.9.2. It should be compared with the Khandogya Upanishad 5.1, Sacred Books of the East, Volume 1, page 72. Also with the Brihadaranyaka 2.4, Kaushitaka Upanishad 3.3, and the Prasna Upanishad 2.3. Here, the richest in verse 2 is used as the feminine, while in the Khandogya Upanishad 5.1 it is Vasishta. And 6. He who knows generation, this is wanting in the Khandogya Upanishad. Rower and Poley read Pragatata for Pragata. Manuscript I.O. 375 has Pragata. Manuscript I.O. 973, Pragapata. And 7 went to Brahman. Here we have Pragapata instead of Brahman in the Khandogya Upanishad. See also Sreshta instead of Vasishta. And, well, if we break things up into our parts, or the parts of the vehicles in which we inhabit as human beings, definitely, we need to regard the qualities of the part.